Facebook said, oh, she must be
Kathleen, there's one over here. That's okay.
One second, I can't move. Oh.
Are you done with that?
She looks like a real thing.
Oh, do you know?
Yeah, it does.
She knows where it is. Yeah.
Yeah.
This one right here. I think you can hear better. You don't have the street.
Getting a little work done right here before I begin my attempt to start a riot. Now the trouble begins now, and if you look over your shoulders and make sure the bobbies aren't in sight, nobody to worry about here. Very well. I won't need this because you're not sitting when you do a lecture. I gotta stand up, and before I start anything, this is necessary. And I'd like to point out something that I need to stipulate for. What the tarnation is this? A man can't do a lecture and not smoke a cigar, a pipe. What's this world coming to? That's what my lecture is going to be about, so just give me a second here. Just a security blanket, mind you. I'm not going to use flame to it. In lieu of cigar. Y'all may know me as Samuel Clemens or Mark Twain. See a couple of good friends in the audience here. Brother who saw me yesterday, and they can testify that I ruffled some feathers. In all the years that Mr. Tesla has allowed us with his technology to come back here and cause trouble here in this fair city, I've never had so many people get up and walk away from one of my lectures before. I must have touched a nerve because I started to talk about politics. You see, I started off my lecture yesterday explaining that I was going to be talking about my book, The Gilded Age, which is about the corruption, not only in the municipality where the story starts, but in Washington, D.C. Speculation. I made sort of some comments, and I started the whole lecture with a question and answer. So I'm going to ask the same thing, but I'm going to attempt not to alienate. There he goes, Mr. Tesla. You're responsible for this. I know. You tell Mr. Edison that his DC battery. Ladies and gentlemen, let's start this right now. Mr. Tesla is responsible for this foul thing. All right? Now I ask all of you to shut them off like mine is. Mine is off. However it works, it looks like a tile or it's a shim from a riverboat that you have to put by the... I have no idea what it... He's busy. Blame him for all of this. But if you could shut those off, you're more than welcome to take tintypes with them. I guess they do take what you call photographs. Motion pictures. All well and good, but communication, we have. In any case, yesterday I asked everyone in attendance a question. Y'all vote? Raise your hands if you do. Look at that. That's a fine thing. That's a fine thing. I'm not going to ask you whether or not you're a donkey or an elephant, because it doesn't matter to me. I can't stand either one of them. The quote that I am is attributed to myself, that I take great pride in, probably my best. Diapers and politicians need changing often and for the same reason. Now let that soak in. You see, our governments are usurping our rights. Now, if you vote let's ask this question first, because you're going to be asking me a bunch of questions, so I think I'm going to keep asking you questions to begin with. From my time, when I wrote Gilded Age about all the corruption in Washington, D.C., the foul graft, that's what I want to ask. Did you fix it? Did your vote fix it? Or is all of America being deceived by a donkey and an elephant? Because that's what's happening. Now, in the Gilded Age, I'm not going to tell you about the story because you're living it right now. Apparently, nothing's been fixed with the vote because you're being deceived by a donkey and an elephant. Now, yesterday, maybe my flamethrower was a little high, a little bit too much fuel in the thing, and it caused a couple of people to walk away. Now, my question to you now is, I'm not going to swear, but do you want me to hold back or do you want me to be Twain? Now, so I'm going to ask you, do you want me to be really Twain? Raise your hand. Because I'll give you full Twain as it is complete, as that I can manifest thanks to Mr. Tesla and Mr. Edison over there. By the way, I encouraged Mr. Tesla years ago in a machine that brought all us authors in England back here. I invested in it, probably my wisest decision ever. And come to find out, he made peace with Mr. Edison. Now they're fine friends and chums. They couldn't stand each other. They're my best friends. But they were at loggerheads. Well, they come into your time and start meddling and create this confounded thing. Steve Jobs, Mr. Wozniak, I'm sorry. This is all Tesla Edison technology. So, your time hasn't been cleaned up with the vote. Now, I'm going to be honest with you. I've met many politicians. My name that you read on the books, Mark Twain, which some of you may know is a navigation term, was first used when I was in California working for one of the many papers. My brother was the secretary for the new state of Nevada. So they sent me off to Carson City to report back on the legislature as Senator Clemens. And I had to be dry as a Tucson desert. My words had to be so boring that I put myself to sleep within 3 sentences just writing about the legislature. It was just, so I came up with a nom de plume, so to speak, so I could be myself and talk about the Italian farce that government really is. People running back and forth between hallways. You know what an Italian farce is? It's a hallway and people are just running back and forth, running back. That's what government is. And all they're doing is running the middle so they can line their own pockets. Don't be deceived. Whether or not it's this building here, the one up in Sacramento, or the big house in Washington, this is just kindergarten for corruption. And you know what? They're keeping you completely bamboozled because you're paying attention to national politics. Let me make something clear about the Constitution of the United States. It does not mention parties once. Not once. Not once until they changed it so senators become elected. Because originally they are supposed to be appointed by the State House. And you know what that means in the machine? The engine of freedom and democracy. That means that you're supposed to pay attention to the local and not be deceived by the national circus that they shove down your throat with national media. Because in my time, when I wrote for a newspaper, they were local papers that dealt with local issues. And it wasn't until William Randolph Hearst started publishing everywhere and buying up newspapers that there was a national media. And from that time forward, they have deceived the American people into paying exclusive attention to the national and ignoring the local. Take my word. If the American towns would turn off their devices and put their scrutiny with the same passion at their city halls and their town halls, none of these politicians who didn't have integrity could work their way up from the kindergarten to the elementary school, up to Sacramento, the junior high, into Congress, which is junior college, and then finally to PhD of corruption, the Senate. Because senators are like the royal house. George Washington himself berated Thomas Jefferson and Alexander Hamilton for creating the political parties. George Washington at Mount Vernon, in front of the other founding fathers, while they were all drunk on port wine, lost his temper more than once and verbally abused Hamilton and Jefferson in front of the whole host of guests for the act of creating political parties in the United States of America. Because he knew, and he said, this will be the end of this great experiment. Because the most important thing is that we are neighbors first. If we know each other. In small towns, they look out for each other. But when you get to big cities, it's easier for those houses of government to create what I wrote about in Gilded Age. Now it's personal responsibility with your franchise, with your vote that keeps corruption and graft out. And what can you do? How much value does your vote have at the national level? Very little. But your vote at the local level means everything. Because if you can keep scoundrels out at the local level, they cannot accelerate. But if the nation spends all its time talking about something they have very little to do about, that means they win. And thereby, more than 150 years ago, my first novel, I talked about openly, I witnessed it as a correspondent in Washington, that there was greed and corruption. And it may come off as humorous, and the dollar amounts that I write about seem preposterous for then, but they were not. And you can only imagine now what payoffs we don't know about and how much money they are at this time. Now, this may not be a lecture that has the humor, if I were to speak about Connecticut Yankee, King Arthur's Court, or some of the more funny scenes from Huck Finn, or Pudd'nhead Wilson, or any other. They're all commentaries on society. This one has less humor because it is of such import. I don't mean to get up here and sound like a preacher of freedom, but your freedoms, the founding fathers said, you hold jealously. And that jealousy starts at your local government. Because rest assured, as much corruption as there is at the national level, there is just as much as around this great country at the local level. Because that's where it starts. You'd be surprised how often your rights are violated with just simple laws. Why should you get a ticket for parking your car if somebody comes around and sweeps the street and you left your car there? That's a modern thing. That's money that they're taking out of your pocket. Now, again, this may not be humorous, but you raised your hand and said you wanted full Twain. So I'm giving you full Twain. So right now, since you got all my vitriol and everything, I'm going to be done with that. I don't want to chase anyone away like I did yesterday. No bobbies, so I'm not going to get in trouble. See, here in America, there in England, you can't have free speech, but we're in England here in America. In America, you have free speech. That's given right. Your rights cannot be taken away by the government. So hold them jealously. And remember that your local government is where you need to focus more attention than you do on the national. Because again, you should tell this to every friend, every relative who lives outside of your own city and in your city. Pay attention to the local. That's how we're going to scrub the rust out of this country. Because if everyone in this nation paid attention to the local first, the problem would fix itself. One generation. One generation. The entire nation says local first. One generation. our republic is clean again. That's what you teach your children, your friends. So, that's the lecture. Because I know there's questions out there. You're doing Q&A. Oh, I've got a couple more for you. How many people have read Mark Twain book? Oh, does my pocketbook well. How many people are going to go buy a Mark Twain book? Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Obviously, my lecture wasn't good enough. I think right now, if you were to go out and read Gilded Age, you'd see that nothing has changed. It would infuriate you. It is a comedy and a tragedy at the same time. It's written as a comedy, as much of what I write is to make you think. My question, last one for you, is if you had the chance and you knew that you were the person, how many people would make sure, and I'm honest here, would take my words to heart and start paying a little bit more attention to who's running for your city council? Will you pay attention to your city councils in your own cities? Raise your hand if you're going to. Sorry that those of you who didn't raise your hand and decided that the national is more important. I don't mean to scare you off, but you're letting it happen. If you don't pay attention to the local, you're letting it happen. So now that I've kind of pushed over the punch bowl a little bit, I'm going to let you ask me some questions. And the first thing I'd like to say is those of you with more complicated questions trying to stump me, could you hold on? Because those who are shy and want to ask a question but don't want to be first, if they hear your question, they're not going to raise their hand. So let's get some questions up here. A little Q&A. Yes, sir.
You traveled a lot. What was your favorite country outside of the U.S.?
No, but I'll tell you this. As somebody who did travel a lot, there's a lot of good people everywhere, a lot of scoundrels. I learned a lot, and I realized that travel is what makes you love your home and appreciate humanity and to have an open heart and mind for other cultures. Traveling is what makes you less conventional, gets you out of the village. I would say this. One of the things I love about America is the strangeness of our food. I love to eat around America. Now, there's great food all around the rest of the world, but I'll be honest, just some of the strange dishes that people make in the little hollers across the country out of turnips or possums or pheasant in that special little village way was dear to my heart and to my stomach. And I would often go off the beaten path just so I could sample the wares of a small inn where I knew that's the only place you can get pheasant. You can't do that any other place in the world. You have to dine fancy. Any more questions, please?
Did you have a book or a written essay on Shakespeare?
I wrote about him, but not in a book form. I made commentaries and other forms, but nothing too elaborate. I didn't comment too much on Shakespeare other than incidentals within other writers, but not as much as other authors actually relate to.
Talk about his background, his country that he was born in, and they all did not know how to read and write.
Well, I think the closest thing was Connecticut Yankee and King Arthur's Court, but it was predated Shakespeare. Direct references to Shakespeare in my work are minimal compared to other times. My writings about England itself were either before Shakespeare or generally afterwards. I only made a couple references with Shakespeare in different works. Yeah.
Which of your works do you think had the most effect on Victorian society or people of the time?
My time or present?
Your time.
My time would have been the most read best-selling book of my lifetime was not Huck Finn or Tom Sawyer. It was Innocents Abroad, or New Pilgrim's Progress, which was the travel narrative of when I took the Quaker to France, Paris, the Mediterranean, the Holy Lands, Black Sea. I met the Tsar. The reason it was so important is America hadn't fully digested its own identity. It was a nation struggling against the old world views, old world standards that hadn't come of their own. Novels were considered the sort of thing for the lower classes because the upper Protestant classes, they all read travel narratives that were false in every manner. They were lies talking about how elevated everything in Europe was. And because few people from America had the opportunity to travel from Europe, and this is what everyone thought was Europe, when I went over, I told the truth. Now, these were just correspondence back to newspapers that were circulated to other newspapers. I was writing to Alta California. This is after my trip to Hawaii. I went to Sandwich Islands. I was the first non-Hawaiian royal, the first white man to ride a surfboard. I was the first Anglo surfer. After that, they paid for me to go on the trip to the Middle East with a bunch of Protestants who would chip stones off of monuments and grottos where the little Christ baby was supposed to have been. They'd go chip things, yet look down on me and my wife Libby's younger brother. Now, that's why I first saw the picture of my wife. The reason it was so popular is my telling the truth. The nation knew that they had their own identity. They knew that the Paris streets weren't spotlessly clean everywhere, and that they knew that it was a lie that every shop owner was going to treat you fairly in Paris. No, they learned it all, and they got their own identity. So that was the most popular book because it gave America their identity. It wasn't until after my death, or towards the end of it, that Tom Sawyer and Huck Finn began to pass it and having more popularity.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Now,
Yes, was Robert Fulton's steamship invented when Mark Twain was publishing everything? And is there a connection between Huckleberry Finn and Mark Twain?
Huck Finn is the synthesis of my childhood, wrapped around a lesson. In fact, every book I ever wrote had some sort of lesson buried in it. Every article, every letter to the editor had a lesson. Fulton invented a steamship when I was a lad, just a small boy, setting time. I was blessed to be able to stand in the pilot house, smoke a cigar or a pipe, watch the Mississippi just stroll by as we're fighting upstream. It just pushes down as we're going downstream. No, Fulton gave me my heart by making a steamship so I could see that Mississippi River all its stretches. So I'm deeply grateful to the man's ingenuity and to those who made those steamship paddle boats. Aside from Libby and the children, it's the happiest time of my life. Happiest time of my life. And Huck Finn, yeah, he's me, a child with a dilemma, stuck on the horns of dilemma of humanity. And I'll leave you to read the book, because if you read it enough, you'll realize there's a deep lesson buried in that book. Yes, ma'am.
Can you talk a little bit about your time in Northern California, Rivers County, and writing, and newspaper, and
Well,
time in the cabin?
I think that was really what sparked me, because I wasn't made for physical labor. So the idea of getting riches to be a from being a miner? Well, that just didn't suit me. There's not too many. A fountain pen really doesn't give you cowards. I learned a lot. It gave me such riches to ride on. Because despite the filth of a mining camp out in the hills, the ruffians who occupy those camps, they're good, hard-working men who have a dream. So I was able to learn a lot. Calaveras County, well, that's where the frog came from, and that was the first thing that really made me famous. And I think if you read such as New Pilgrim's Progress, you know, when I did the travel narrative, you will read that I compare every body of water that I see in short order to Lake Tahoe. For there is no other body of water so blue, so perfect, so clear, who you can drink from and think you're drinking from heaven's pond itself. So Northern California, I have a deep love. Couldn't live there because I had to live in Hartford. And then around the world to pay my debts. So, more questions, please. You're doing good. You're doing good. Nobody's walked out. The constables aren't here yet. And a riot hasn't broke out. So, anything else? Come on now. Try to. Yes, sir.
You wrote a lot about the problems of greed, and then you yourself wound up going bankrupt. What happened?
There's a difference between greed and going bankrupt. I made unwise decisions because I believed in other people's dreams. I didn't try to become rich. I lost my money because of a typesetter, because I truly believed that Ulysses S. Grant's biography needed to be told. And President Grant got a great deal of my money for that book that was never earned back. I lived well. There's no doubt about that. But compared to the associates who tried to grab me by the scruff of the neck and tell me, Samuel, you're not good with money, and who made me put on this white suit and lecture around the world to pay my debts, and I paid them all. No, those people had wealth. I was doing okay in my lifetime. Yes, I wanted wealth, but I dined humbly around the world and was grateful for that hospitality and even the most lowly of places. And I had guests from classes, social classes, that wouldn't normally occupy a table with crystal and china and silver, and welcomed them into my home just as I had welcomed other people. The wealthy may not. So I didn't ever consider myself wealthy in money. That's certainly the truth. But I was wealthy in friends that I'd made over a lifetime. Any more, please? Let's get a couple. Okay, I'm sorry, my mother, I gotta ask.
Talk about your children and your wife. We want to know
I will
about
go
your lovely
briefly.
wife and children.
I will go briefly because there's a great deal of tragedy. My wife, Libby, was everything to me. Her brother had a locket with a picture when I went on that trip, that boat trip to Europe. And when I saw the locket of Olivia Langdon, I said, I am going to marry your sister while we were playing poker. See, we're the only ones on the ship who drank whiskey and played poker, and the Protestant snooties looked down upon us, knowing that I'm a newspaper man and I'm in there playing poker and drinking whiskey. No, her brother showed me the picture. I said, I'm going to marry her. Her father, Mr. Langdon, who was well off, wasn't too keen on it at first. And then finally he acquiesced, and I took her hand, and we had a good life. Our son died early. The girls were the joy in heartbreak. We lived next door to Harriet Beecher Stowe. Later on today, I'll do a tea with Harriet Beecher Stowe. She was my next door neighbor. Libby and the kids would be over there in their kitchen. Harriet would scream and whoop like an Indian, startle the girls like crazy. And then my youngest and my oldest daughter fell ill and died. And then my wife got sick while we were in Europe. And only Claire was left. So when I had sold the house in Hartford, so many memories, I built Stronghold, a barren place, where only Libby was left, and that was my only joy. If you see pictures of me, my bitterness towards the end of my life was that the Creator took away the dearest things I had. So, thank you for the question. Yes, sir.
Which other authors in your time did you have the most respect for?
Practically all of them are represented here. I had a little butting heads with Miss Louisa May Alcott. We'll be having tea a little bit later, too. No, I thought she was more up to her speed, but we were the first two people to write adolescent literature. Literature about and for adolescents. And I'll give her credit for that, because she dealt with issues in Little Women and other works that were important at the time, just for girls, just as mine was for boys. So I think that was important. I've come to terms with her for what she said about me in her lifetime, and I can't blame her. And I'm not sure, I can't speak for her, but she at least treats me now with more respect that Mr. Tesla has brought us back here. I'll tell you who I didn't care for, and I wrote a story to prove it. And a couple of years ago, when I was manifested back here, Mr. Arthur Conan Doyle got drunk on a Saturday night at the Fezziwig's ball and couldn't make his lecture. So I gave his lecture. Little did he know that I would eviscerate Sir Arthur Conan Doyle. No, I don't like Sir Arthur Conan Doyle at all. Now, I'm not going to cast aspersions on him by telling you why, but I could write a PhD manifested as the non-Mark Twain person that's here on why. Break character for a second. Mark Twain did not like Sir Arthur Conan Doyle at all. You'll have to do your own research on why, because I'm not going to disparage you. So let me go back to character. I wrote a story. It's a short story, rather long for a short story, about a boy who, in a mining camp, humiliates Sherlock Holmes. Yes, Mark Twain has a short story where Sherlock Holmes is an idiot. A pompous idiot in a mining camp trying to clear his nephew from a murder, where the hero of the Mark Twain story, a young lad who can find anything, who is searching the world for his father for retribution, because that's what his mother taught him to do. Now, he never finds him in the story, but what the story really tells you is that he solves the crime in a way that Sherlock Holmes just looks like a complete fool. And that is because, even though it wasn't written, only in small little places by me, and because I needed to keep it quiet. No, Sir Arthur Conan Doyle looks down upon America in a way. In his Sir Arthur Conan Doyle. Now I know I'm going off the stretch here, but I want to tell you why. Full Twain. Full Twain. It is Dr. Watson who is the narrator for all Sherlock Holmes tales. That's the mechanism that Sir Arthur Conan Doyle uses. And I say sir because I'm friends with the Queen. She knighted him, I'll call him sir. But in the first murder, not yet! Okay. Sir Arthur Sir Arthur Conan Doyle's story where Doc Watson witnesses the first murder solved. The murder is solved right away. The rest of the story is a malignment, vicious lies about the Mormon Church. Now, I'm not one to poke a blood stick at a church. If you read any of my writing, you know I sharpen it up really, and I get right in there and poke every single church. But I appreciate those of faith who do good works. And for Sir Arthur Conan Doyle to malign good people of America in a way that was vicious and unnecessary, I took offense to. Because the people in mass of the Mormon Church, every single one of them, was maligned by Sir Arthur Conan Doyle. And even though, like I said, I don't hold any of their tenets to my heart, I've met and had good meals with good Mormon people. And for an author of his caliber. Now, it was not the first book. He wrote that later to show the first time Watson encountered Sherlock Holmes. So in my short story, I just let him know right back what I think of him. That Sherlock Holmes is an idiot. Although I do appreciate his writing. Do not get me wrong, Sir Arthur Conan Doyle is a brilliant writer. Personally, I figure I've upset a lot of people, so I might as well have added him to the list. Now, let me get two more questions.